self, his authentic self. What are your thoughts on what we just heard?
I think the end of his soundbite was excellent. I think it got started in a way that people are going to pick apart because he spoke about being an African-American quarterback and being something that people have never seen. And I think that was what people could pick apart because this is not about his athletic ability. It's not about the things he can do as a football player and on the football field. And I know
we have seen those things.
No,
before?
I'm not saying you have seen them, but that's not what people pick apart. People don't send him letters about jumping over the heads of Arizona Cardinals to score touchdowns. They like that.
Yep.
So the hard part, Stephen A. knows this, I've been through it. When you come on as an African-American analyst or journalist and speak about race issues, they think you're always pointing to racism. This doesn't necessarily point to racism, but this does have something to do with race. It does have something to do with culture. It does have something to do with the expectation of Joe Fan thinking that the quarterback position is supposed to behave a certain way, which until this point, many of the black quarterbacks have bought into that as well. You look at RG3, when being compared to Cam early in his rookie year, what'd he say? I don't want to be compared to Cam. Why can't it be Steve Young or other white quarterbacks he named? Because he wanted to get away from that because he felt like that's how he needed to be accepted.
He did.
You look at quarterbacks and they think to themselves, I need to be more of a pocket presence now. That's because the typical quarterback, the Caucasian, the white quarterback has been that. And that's the perception. I was speaking to a woman in my training facility Monday who's married to a pro quarterback who's played 10 years in the league. Asked me about my picks. I said, yeah, I got both picks right. And says to herself, says to me, I didn't want Carolina to win because I don't like Cam. So I asked, why not? No answer that made any sense. She just said, I don't really know. He just rubs me the wrong way. And then she spoke to arrogance. And it makes me think of Aaron Rodgers as he thrusts his pelvis and does the discount double check after every touchdown. That's okay. Tom Brady running around, screaming,
just
cursing.
Like out of his mind.
It's awesome. He's passionate. Rob Gronkowski with the dances and the spiking the ball. It's cool. But culturally, that's okay to the fan. That's okay to the masses, which for the most part, though generationally and culturally, are older white people. And when you watch
Can I, point of order, assume she was white?
Yes.
Okay, just for the record.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And so now when you see Cam dancing, you know why Cam dances? Because he can. Because it's part of his culture. Because people like Jeezy and Future come to his games. It's exciting to him. He has rhythm. He knows how. The reason Peyton Manning isn't dancing, you saw him dancing on that clip in practice. He's terrible. I've been around Russell Wilson, and people accept him in a different way from Cam because he doesn't behave that way culturally. And the other piece about the culture I want people to think about is, I've said many a times that Johnny Manziel is treated like a black quarterback. And here's why. When Johnny Manziel is videoed out, he's not on the stage in Vegas with a bunch of other white people around him drunk, flipping people like Gronkowski. He's drinking Ace of Spades, rapping March Madness by Future. When he's on the sideline or front row of a game in college, he wasn't with John Mayer. He was with Drake. His celebration wasn't playing a guitar because John Mayer is his homeboy. It was the Drake sign. It was the money sign, right? And so these things, when you don't embrace that culture, when you don't understand that culture, you now have a problem with it. You see it a different way. You see it as a way to be negative about a person. So it is about race in a sense, but it's more so about people not being able to understand or fit Cam in the box they want. Because it's okay for you to play receiver. It's okay for you to play cornerback like this, but not my precious quarterback, not my position that we've run forever. Speaking of white quarterbacks, you can't play that position like that. Bottom line, he wins, he leads, and I'm excited for him that he's came to say, you know what, when I look in the mirror, it's about being able to say nobody made me act a certain way. That was important to me. Nobody can say I'm living for them, because this is about the way he acts. This is about the way he lives. This is not about the way he plays football, and people have to get over that and accept him for who he is, because he's the MVP of this league, and not just the face of that organization, he's the face of this league moving forward, so you better get used to it.
Stephen A.
Go ahead, Skip.
You
I want
sure?
to hear what you have to say. Yes, I do. Take your time.
By the way, just a point of order about Brett Favre. I'm going back even before Stephen A. was on this show. Do you know how many black commentators we've had on this show who just ripped and slashed Brett Favre for getting treated, or getting celebrated by John Madden for running around like a crazy man on the field, his boyish, exuberance and all that. And yet, I think that was real Brett Favre, and I believe this is real Cam Newton. So let's get back to what sparked the woman who wrote the letter to the editor from Nashville, Tennessee to the Charlotte Observer. They're up 20, well, they were up 20-10, I guess, over Tennessee late in the game. He scores the 27-10 nail in the coffin touchdown, and he went into his most extended celebration of the year to me. And next day on Monday, Stephen A. and I went back and forth, and I did voice some concern for Cam, and I made it very clear, I'm not talking about a black thing or a white thing. I'm talking about a franchise quarterback thing here, because you have to be careful as the face of the franchise and the leader of this team. And we've had some issues. Stephen A. has voiced some issues in the distant past about Cam's ability to lead, because when they were losing games, there were times we know that he would separate himself from the mess over there and go sit by himself with the towel over his head and seem to sulk or pout, like, I don't want to be associated with those guys because they're losing and it's not my fault. That's how it came across to some people. But in this case, I said you have to be careful if you're celebrating by yourself, because it can come across as a me thing as opposed to a we thing. But soon after that, and I think it had been going on a little bit before, but I just wasn't aware of it, he started in with the late fourth quarter blowout team picture on the sideline. That's the biggest we thing of the year in the National Football League. That is a unity thing. And so I said, okay, I cease and desist, because that works. In fact, I think that team picture is the biggest rocket fuel for this team right now, because they're coming together and saying, we did this together, led by the quarterback. So I'm good with it now, but I'm just saying, as the quarterback, if you're with me, because Robert fell into this trap a little bit, you can't be RG me, you have to be RG we, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think you have to watch it as well. Like, his celebrations are long, and you've seen, like, I speak about Aaron Rodgers because it's been the most celebrated celebration of all. It's got commercials, and now it's this big thing. When he was running to the sideline, by himself. But look at the Luke Kuechly touchdown. Cam Newton is in the pile, in the end zone, jumping on top of Luke Kuechly to celebrate his success.
Yeah.
Trey Boston gets an interception. The player meeting him halfway on the field is Cam Newton. Mike Tolbert, somebody I know personally who's a fullback, when he scores, he dances every time. And the dance is alone. Reason being, two people can't dance together because it's a penalty.
It is a penalty.
And then they celebrate
Ryan,
together. Go ahead. Go ahead, you got it.
Let me interject, and because it's something that needs to be said. Skip Bayless, I need you to listen, and listen closely, because here's where you continuously make a mistake. You started off the show talking about how you love doing this show with me, particularly with these issues. The feeling is mutual. And the reason why is because what you need to understand, Skip, is that the sensibilities and the courage that you have to discuss these issues, by and large, make you unique. And to me, special, because you are unapologetically white. You give a perspective of your own. And on top of all of that, you're not shy about expressing it, which is why somebody like Ryan, I know I'm putting words in your mouth, Ryan, but I think you'll co-sign with this. You have no problem coming on the show, and you're comfortable talking about these issues with Skip, because he's somebody that will listen while honestly giving you his perspective about what he sees and how it may be different than you. Skip, you gotta understand, most white folks that myself and Ryan and others encounter are not like that. And the problem with it is that I think Ryan would be willing to admit, look, Skip, racism exists, but I think we've improved tremendously as a society. And I think that there are a lot of great, God-fearing white folks out there. A vast majority of folks out there who are white are that way. The problem is that we live in a society where we're so petrified of discussing what our differences are, what our beliefs are, why, and where it emanates from. And in that regard, I have to confess to you that black folks, we as black folks, are just as culpable in the lack of dialogue in that regard as white folks are. Because white folks are fearful because of how they're going to be perceived, and black folks make them that way because of how we can get because of what we perceive. And as a result, you'll make people hesitant to engage in dialogue. That's what's really going on. Because when you look at Cam Newton, we're able to historically lean on things and says, this is how it looks to us. This is how it looks to Cam. He's been through it himself. He would know. And we've got historical perspectives to lean on to buffer and validate and augment our points. White folks may very well feel totally different than what we perceive, but fearful to really engage in that dialogue, you leave us no choice but to lean on what history has taught us as a people. What makes you different, Skip, is you don't give us that excuse, because you don't hesitate to say how you feel, where you come from, and explain why. Ryan may feel differently than you. I may feel differently than you. But we never walk away from you offended by what you said because you had the courage to express it, which is what a lot of people in black America would deeply appreciate. You got white dudes that live in the hood too. Guess what? They don't have a problem with the brothers in the hood. You know why? Because the brothers know where they're coming from when they express themselves. But if you don't know and you're hesitant to express yourself, what are we to believe? I pointed out Chip Kelly and what was being said about Chip Kelly by other players. Everybody jumped up. Oh, he's not a racist. Well, who said he was? We said that there are folks on his team who feel a little put off by him. Can you, and they felt put off by him, but Riley Cooper felt comfortable with him, and vice versa. Can you explain that? And instead, people personalized it as if we're talking about them when we were talking about Chip Kelly. We don't have that problem on this show, Skip, because you have the courage to embrace dialogue that most folks outside of the black community run from religiously, albeit sometimes to no fault of their own.
Yeah, I mean, the dialogue here is amazing. It's not that same dialogue everywhere. I mean, I'm from Louisiana, and race is still a huge issue there. Even so much so, and Stephen A. knows about this, the color or the deepness of your brown skin is an issue.
Yes.
And that's a huge thing amongst us. That's nothing to do with you guys. But even larger than that, this opens up a conversation for people who don't like Cam or who have a reason to, who feel like they have a reason to dislike him. What is that reason? And if you're going to dislike Cam because you feel like he's arrogant or he's flamboyant or he's a showboater, you have to look at the other quarterbacks or the other players you idolize, the other players you love, and look at them the same way. And that's what Cam wants. That's what we want. And I think that makes our game better, and that makes the relationship between those fans, between those players, whether white,
Ryan,
black, culturally different, a better place.
Ryan and Skip, that is the epitome of a meritocracy. When it's fair, good, bad, or worse, if it's fair across the board, you're not going to hear people complaining. It's just the way it is.
Allow me to say one last thing to my brother from another mother, Stephen A. Smith. I do love you, man, and I'm honored by what you just said.
No problem.
Let's leave it there. You got to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Up next, the Cavs GM makes it known that LeBron has no trade clause